Well, good day to you all. Here we are on day 17, and we're going on to Genesis 16 to 18. And I hope yesterday you were able to speed hear me. I was trying to get through a lot of material. We've got a bit of ground to cover again today, but these are very important passages that we're going through because this is really the groundwork and where we see the Creator revealing more of Himself to His chosen vessel, Abram, who's going to be really the seed for this nation, this promise that He has made to Abram, and where He's going to make him into a great nation, and He is going to reveal Himself. Is starting to reveal Himself more to Abram, and at the end today, we're just going to run over a few points of the difference between what Abraham had gained in his knowledge of the Creator compared to what we saw Job had. So let's just kick this off, and we'll go on to just a summary here of Genesis 16. There's no verses that we really need to touch on. It's just here that we need to understand that Abraham's mistake here was his impatience. He had received the promise. It's taken a long time. We're gonna look at why it was taking a long time, but it was taking a long time for him to see some kind of fruit, some kind of evidence that this promise was going to be true. Um, we get this idea sometimes that God's promises are immediately today, and there are some things that He does in the immediate, but a lot of the time, His promise is part of a process, and so Abraham here, his mistake was being impatient, and as a result, he and Sarai took matters into their own hands. Um, Sarai gave her handmaid or her servant to Abraham as a secondary wife or a concubine. And from there we have Ishmael being born. But Ishmael is not part of the promise. He's not the son of the promise. He is well the son of the law, if you want to put it that way. That's how um, Paul compares the two. But Ishmael was a result of human effort and not part of God's promise to Abraham. But I want to tell you something that's so incredible. Even when we mess up, God's going to do something with that. A promise has been given, and the fruit of Abraham are now designed to produce wonderfully. So, because Ishmael was still from Abraham, God covers this by His grace. This was not part of His plan, but He covered it by His grace, and He promises that Ishmael will also become a great nation, but not a nation of the promise, not a nation that would continue forever, not a nation of that promise. The seed for the nation um, to reveal God's glory has not yet been born. It's going to come from Sarai. Sarai is part of this covenant with Abraham, and we're going to see that shortly. It's about the two of them. It's not Abraham by himself. It's Abraham and Sarai. And that is so important because we don't hear that talked about a lot. But Sarai is part of this, and if something is produced from Abraham that is not part of Sarai, that has nothing to do with the promise, but God's grace still covers it. Amazing, isn't it? We see here again the use of El. Here we have El Wa, um, but this is in Hebrew. We got to understand this. This is not a Hebrew term. This is not a name of God. This is kind of like a title. It's like God. God is not His name. God is a title. Um, it's it's yeah. I mean, how else do you describe that? That is not His name. His name has not yet been revealed. El Wa is a description of Him, but it's borrowed from the language around them. It's what see. Abraham is there by himself. He's come out of the land of the Chaldeans. He's now in this foreign land. They're speaking a language, and they're using terms that people can relate to. But God has not yet revealed um, His name. But He does here reveal that He is active with humanity. We see that. We see that with his involvement with Ishmael. We see that with promises that are made. We see that he is involved. He sees, he takes action, he intervenes in some cases. So it is not a matter of that he created things and he's backed off. He's created things and now he has a plan. He's more involved now than we saw him before because now he has a plan and he has to be part of this to make that plan go forward. I want you to note that. Where was he before? Where was he before in the earlier part of Genesis as we were reading it, compared to what he is doing now? We see him interacting now with Abram and with people around Abram, and there's more revealed to us about his involvement with creation. So that's good. Going on to Genesis 17. It's just some things that I wanted to highlight here. We see here again, there is the covenant is repeated in verses 1 and 2. I am El Shaddai, and we're going to come back to that. We're going to address that name as well, or not name, title. El Shaddai, walk with me and be trustworthy. El Wa, by the way, it just means it's another term for creator, the God creator. The uplifted one is what that title refers to. El Shaddai we'll look at in just a couple of slides. So he says, I am El Shaddai, walk with me. It's an invitation to relationship. It's like, Abram, I don't want you to be at a distance with me. I want you to walk with me. I mean, there's not a lot that it was referred to that God walked with them or that they walked with God. We have Adam. Enoch is another one. And here, Abram is being invited to be one of those who walk with him and be trustworthy. I want to trust you. Be honest with me. Let's have this relationship. Walk with me and be trustworthy. I will make a covenant between us, and I will give you many, many descendants. So we have this being repeated again. It gets repeated again and again and again. It's just constantly being held out there. So now we have this name change thing that happens. Okay, Abram. Now I can stop slipping up and start calling it Abraham. Here in verse 4 and 5 of chapter 17. But me, my covenant is with you. Okay, it's not with Ishmael. It's with you. You will be the ancestor of many nations. And because I have made you the ancestor of many nations, your name will no longer be Abram, but Abraham. This is significant because Abraham is now shifting. His whole role in history is shifting. And when somebody takes on a new identity, they're given a new name. That's what happens in the Word of God. Because names are supposed to be reflecting of who you are, your position, and such. So Abraham was exalted ancestor. He was already recognized as being somebody important. He's the exalted ancestor, but he's got no kids. So who's he going to be the ancestor of? But now his name is changed. Abraham, ancestor of a multitude. That's a name of promise. That's a name that he's going to grow into, and his children are going to grow into that name for him, ancestor of a multitude. So we have the name change. Then in verse 9 to 11, we have this other thing that is now established. It's really important. It's so important throughout the Jewish Hebrew culture that's going to develop. It's a sign of the covenant. In verse 9 to 11 here, it's, as for you, you must keep my covenant. You and your descendants in every generation, you must keep my covenant. So this is their end. This is what they have to do. This is my covenant that you and your descendants must keep. Circumcise every male. That's the covenant. When they do that, they basically, they're signing their name to the bottom of that covenant. They're saying, I belong to you. I'm part of you. That's the significance. That's what it was supposed to be entailing. You must circumcise the flesh of your foreskins, and it will be a symbol of the covenant between us. And then in verse 13, your flesh will embody my covenant as an enduring covenant. So this is like even more than a tattoo or a piercing. I mean, you can get a tattoo removed, piercings can overgrow, but you can't undo circumcision. It's just you can't do it. Um, no amount of glue is going to help that thing come back on. It's just done. Okay, it's done, and that's what this sign is. This is a permanent thing. This is a permanent thing. I belong to you. This is quite the commitment, and that's what he's looking for from them, because they are to be his people. He doesn't want them going anywhere else. They are to be his people, and that's what the circumcision is indicating there. So then we get down to Sarai's name change. Okay, it wasn't just Abram going to Abraham, but Sarai is going to Sarah. And so we find here, verse 15, 16, as for your wife Sarai, you will no longer call her Sarai. Her name will now be Sarah. I will bless her and even give you a son from her. I will bless her so that she will become nations, and kings of peoples will come from her. She is part of this covenant with Abraham. God is specifically calling her out, calling this out, making this point with Abraham. It's not just with you, it's with your wife. Sarai means princess. Sarah means my princess. It's a more exalted version of Sarai, and it was to lift her up, exalt her to the position that she needs as the mother of this nation. So just underline that, just in case you're talking to anybody and they just want to leave out Sarah. Um, your wife Sarah will give birth to a son for you, and you will name him Isaac. In this verse 19, I will set up my covenant with him and with his descendants after him as an enduring covenant. And again, I just put that in there just to emphasize this is from Sarah, nobody else. But this whole thing with Ishmael is there's a demonstration of compassion, and you may not see that, but this was not God's call. This was not his desire. This was not his will. This was Abraham at the time, going out on his own. It was Sarai wanting to honor her husband, and the two of them just not waiting any longer, and really, God could have had nothing to do with Ishmael whatsoever, but he took care of him, and the promise was there, because Abraham is a father, and he loves his son Ishmael. He loves him dearly, and he wants the best for him. But Ishmael could not be there to interfere with the promise. So there was going to be a separation that was going to happen. And I can only imagine that was doing to that dad's heart there. And he was asking for blessings for his firstborn. And he says, as for Ishmael, I've heard your request. I will bless him and make him fertile and give him many, many descendants. He will be the ancestor of 12 tribal leaders, and I will make a great nation of him. And so we're learning of God's grace here. That this is a big one that you need to just underscore here. God didn't need to do this. This was something that they did outside of his will, and yet God covered it by his grace. In verse 23, we see here that once this covenant has been established, once God has given this order, he's given the instruction, the explanation. Man, this is the thing about Abraham. Abraham, he didn't beat around the bush. When God called him out from the Chaldeans, man, he went. He went. He didn't need any further explanation. When this is given to him, he didn't barter, he didn't complain, he didn't ignore, he jumped right at it. From the place where you were standing, look up and gaze to the north, south, east, and west, because all the land that you see, I give you, and your descendants forever. I will make your descendants like the dust of the earth. If someone could count the bits of dust on the earth, then they will also count your descendants. I may have left out. Yeah, I did. Okay, let me just bring this up. You won't be able to see it, but I'll read it to you. That's what happens when I try to make these slides so quickly. Just give me one moment. Verse 23. It says, Abram took his son Ishmael and all those born in his household and all those purchased with his silver, that is every male in Abraham's household, and he circumcised the flesh of the foreskins that same day, just as God had told him to do. That same day. Look it up, verse 23. He didn't delay. That same day. And I apologize for misbehaving with that form. Okay, what slide I mean. So let's just go back to verse 1 for a second. El Shaddai, because I want this understood. I need this to be understood, because it's not Hebrew. El is not Hebrew. El means God, but it's from the language of the people around them, and this is so that they can just relate to what Abraham is saying. So this may have been a title that the other people around them used, God of the mountains, and God referenced it. He's referenced it as a title, but we know he's more than the God of the mountain. He's the God of everything. He's the God of all creation, and that's why he is the great I am. And that's the name that has not been revealed yet. He's not going to give his name to Abraham. He has reserved the person who he's going to reveal himself to, who he's going to give that name to, and it's Moses. So that's like 4 generations away yet. It's not the time for him to be revealed. So he has allowed them to use this title, God of the mountains, and that's how he's referring to himself, as God of the mountains. And it may have had some significance to the culture around them at that time that we may not really appreciate right now, but it's just so that you can understand that, because a lot of people want to go around and say, use all these different names for God, and they're proud that they know all these names, and they include these ones, but these are before the knowing. Okay, let's say that there are other titles that come after Yahweh, after the name Yahweh is revealed. Jehovah Jireh is one of them, because sometimes we use Jehovah in place of Yahweh. Jehovah Jireh. There's other ones that come out as a description after God has revealed himself to Moses and to the people when they see his power in the rescue from Egypt. So just keep this in mind, okay? That as we go along, we have to almost put ourselves in the ignorant shoes of the people of the time. Ignorant not by choice, but ignorant simply because the God has not revealed himself in that way yet. So going on to chapter 18, in verse 1. It's amazing how many times that God has met with Abraham. Maybe you can't appreciate that, but if you stop and think about the chapters that we've already read, when you think about the lack of encounters that Job had with God, the whole idea of Job's friends saying that you can't know God, you can't see him, maybe from a distance, but not up close. And here he is up close with Abraham. He's met him how many times? He's brought him outside and showed him the stars. And here he's about to have another encounter with him. Uh, so we read in the first verse, so the Lord appeared to Abraham at the oaks of Mamre, while he sat at the entrance of his tent in the day's heat. So, and we're going to talk about three men in appearance. But understand, when they talk about appear, when he meets with them, it's through the messengers. It's through the angels. The angels are the servants. The angels are the army, the choir, the messengers, and so, I mean, Abraham can't meet with God in that way. He can't. But they come from his presence. They come and they stand there before Abraham as the voice of God, as him. So that's what we're talking about here. Just kind of a little thing here on Genesis 18. Um, we have here again the promise of a son, and it includes Sarah kind of in the tent laughing because you know why? Because she has stopped menstruating. Okay, she has gone way past the time of bearing children. We don't know what age that was at that time because they lived longer. So I mean, it was common for them to live to 120, 130, 140 years. So who knows when the time of reproduction ended in that day? But we're told that it was over for Sarah. It was over for Abram. Being 100 years old, being 90 years old, it's just like no, it's not heard of. So I mean, this promise has been coming for a long time. This isn't like it was yesterday. It's been being promised for a very long time. So why the delay? Why until this moment when it was impossible for them? They're all dried up, if you want to put it that way. It's impossible for them to have any children at all. They're past this point of promise. That's why Abraham has been struggling with this whole thing. And yeah, so why? Well, they absolutely have to understand that when Isaac um, comes, that this is not their will. It's not a matter of I wonder if I heard God right, or this is it's circumstantial. I mean, this just could have been happening on our own. God's not really involved with any of this at all, and no, no, it doesn't work that way. He made sure that the well was dry, absolutely dry, before he brought water from it. And this is important for us because this is now it's going to become a normal way that God is going to deal with things. He is going to cause the dry bones to rise up. He is going to bring life from death. This is what he's going to do so that nobody can argue about it, and we all know it's from him. We all know it's from him. And it was important for Abraham and Sarah to understand that this promise was a supernatural promise, that they won't see with their eyes this great nation, but what his promised to them is as good as done. And so it's done by this miracle child. He brings forward this miracle child, this seed from which he's going to grow this promise. It's amazing, isn't it? Um, we talk about blind faith, uh, but God doesn't want us to be blind in this. He wants us to have a clear choice, to believe the promise that He said, or to reject Him. So he does it this way. He gives you that miracle so that you always have that back to look back on. He gives us these things so we always have these road markers to look back on, that we won't doubt, that we won't doubt his promises, that we won't doubt what he says. These are prophetic markers that he gives to us. That's what you have to understand. And he's giving you, I'm telling you right now, he's giving you a lot of prophetic markers. Maybe you didn't appreciate it. Maybe you didn't see it that way. But maybe you should just ask him to refresh your memory on some of those prophetic markers, those miracles, those things that he's brought forward that indicate, where he was taking you. It's important stuff. So just a couple of verses that we want to touch on here. This is really important. This is part of that the new theology, the unveiling of God. Is anything too difficult for the Lord? Verse 14, is anything too difficult for the Lord? Isn't that an amazing thing that's brought in here? This is early days. It's really early days. And yet this is a promise that we still hold on to. Is anything too difficult for the Lord? Of course not. He's the creator of all things. But yet, how many people doubt? Verse 19, this is an amazing thing. Here God is including Abraham in his counsel. I'm not going to go into the everything to do with Sodom and Gomorrah. It's there. It's pretty black and white. It's easy to understand. But this it's the relationship that amazes me. This moment, And God says in verse 19, I have formed a relationship with him. This is something really important. I have formed a relationship with him so that he will instruct his children and his household after him. Instruct about what? Instruct about God's righteousness. Instruct about who God is, and instruct about how he deals with things, what's important to him. So that he would have a clear view, more than Job ever had, have a clear view into who he is. That's what he's saying. And they will keep to the Lord's path, being moral and just, so that the Lord can do for Abraham everything he said he would. So it's important that those who follow after Abraham walk in a good understanding of what God considers right and wrong, what God considers moral and immoral, righteous and unrighteous, so that they have this understanding of what their lives should look like. Um, and then also out of this whole thing that happens, we have this incredible moment of intercession. We come now to understand that it is possible. It is possible um, to to get the creator to change his action, what he wants to do. We can intercede. We can call out on the behalf of people. That's what we're told, that we can do this. So I mean, later Jesus gives authority over really over life and death and disease and demons and all these sort of things. But this is interceding for people who don't deserve it. This is asking God's grace for people who don't deserve it. This is reminding God who he is from what we understand. So intercession is just an incredible thing, and we see it here with Abraham. It's just an amazing thing. And then the last verse I want to touch on here, verse 25, um, there things are being revealed, but like, does he have a really true understanding? And where do we stand on this? See, he just because Abraham took this approach doesn't mean that he's right about all of this. And we need to be careful, because we need to look at what is being revealed. And so Abraham says, it's not like you to do this, killing the innocent with the guilty, as if there were no difference. It's not like you. Will the judge of all the earth not act justly? And so, like, my question is, does he have the same perspective of Job, that our life on this planet is all we get? Because if we really think that, if that's where Abraham is, then we can understand the statement more. Because if he was to wipe out the city and there were innocent that were there as well, and we think that this earth is all there is, there's no reward, there's nothing afterwards, then this doesn't seem right. It doesn't seem just. But if we can understand that this is a poor translation of the greater place, if we can understand that he is bringing us into a greater glory, that he is bringing us into great riches, he is bringing us into a place that we will forget all about this place, then you can begin to understand there is a reward that is reserved, that it just goes like off the scale. Yeah. So where are we with that? That's the question. Is that still some place that we're living, where we believe um, that our reward is in this place? And that's not saying that he doesn't reward us. I'm not saying that, because Scripture is clear uh, that he is the rewarder of all those who diligently seek him. But for me, the greater reward for me is a deepening relationship with him, because the things in this world just they pass away, they fade. You don't hold on to them. Everything's filled with decay and death in this place, but my relationship with him is absolutely precious, and I want it to be as great and as wonderful. I want to know him better than anything and anyone on this planet. So let's just consider here for a moment some of the things. This is just some of the things, because I want you to be, when you're reading through this, I want your mind to be churning and looking for new things, new discoveries that are happening. Don't rest upon what you know. Consider what they know, because this whole thing is about God revealing himself. So some of the new things that Abraham has discovered is that God is his provider. God is his protector. Um, He's the God of nothing is too difficult. Nothing is impossible. He's the God of covenant, of promise. He makes covenant with people. He enters into covenant with people. That's an amazing thing right there. Um, he is the God of up close, personal, and active. He's active in creation. He's not at a distance. He is active. He is interceding. He's got a plan, and he's moving that plan forward, and he uses people in his plan. That's what it's all about. He uses us in that plan to move things forward for the betterment of humanity. He has no desire. Well, anyway, that's revealed later on. Let's just understand that he's up close, personal, and active. He's the God who listens and changes his plans, or adjust his plans. We should say that the plan going forward is still the same, but there's these nuances, there's these side routes, these things that he is open to. He will hear us as we intercede for people who don't know him, who can't fight for themselves because they don't have the same knowledge. That's so important, people. So much is revealed just in this stuff. That's a lot. Whew, your head is probably spinning again, because there's a lot that's revealed in this whole section. This stuff with Abraham. It's not always going to be like this, um, it- but these are important foundational stuff that we're getting in place as we go forward. So thank you guys for this day. Thank you for being here, and I pray that you have a really fantastic day, that you see God in it, and you are blessed. You are blessed. I'm blessed for this time with you.